Hi everyone, I'm Tom and today I'm going to be showing you how to play Solar Sphere. Designed by Simon Milburn and Ayden Lowther and published by Dranda Games, who commissioned this video. The human race has exhausted Earth's energy reserves. To become an interstellar civilization, they must harness the power of an entire solar system by building a solar sphere. You have been contacted by the vast interstellar corporation to help construct the sphere. You'll need a crew, individuals with the skill sets you need to get the job done. But you are not the only captain contracted by the corporation, and there is a race to claim huge rewards and prestige. Beware the resistance. They are fanatically opposed to the sphere and will stop at nothing to prevent the megastructure from being built and disrupt the next giant leap for humanity. The corporation says these rebels are to be eliminated without hesitation. The sphere must be built at any cost. So throughout the video, there should be chapters linking you to each section of the video. If there's a particular area of the game you would like to know about first, you can skip around if you would like. First of all though, let's see how we got to this point and set up the game. First, grab the core hex, just the one with this symbol on it. All the other ones have got their costs and rewards and dice numbers on them. Core hex goes in the middle like this. Get the other 18 sphere hexes and shuffle them face up, but depending on your player count, flip some face down. For a 4-player game, you want them all face up. In a 3-player game, flip 3 of them face down. And in a 2-player game, which is what I'm going to be setting up for here, you flip 6 of them face down. Flip the relevant number face down, shuffle them all up, and then we'll start to lay them out. Now you've shuffled them, lay the sphere hexes out clockwise around the core hex. Face up tiles stay face up, face down tiles stay face down if you've got any. Keep going until you've got 2 rings around the core hex. That should use all of the tiles up. In a 2 or 3 player game when we've got these face down tiles, grab a corporation drone, these white cubes here, and pop one on each of the face down tiles. The border pieces will jigsaw together around the hexes that you've placed to make a lovely border until you've got something kind of like this. Place the turn order track in the play area. The 8 location cards go around the sphere. The resources of the game, ore, gold, and crystals, go by their relevant location cards. So this one produces crystals, this produces gold, and this produces ore. Shuffle up the 4 sphere goal cards, choose one of them, and put the rest back in the box. The one you've chosen can go face up in the play area. Find the resistance ship cards and sort them into types based on their value at the top of the card here. So I've just got all the 2s here. Shuffle each of these stacks separately. And then we're going to make a resistance deck. There are always 12 cards in this deck. There is a table in the rulebook telling you how many of each level you will need for your player count. For a 2-player game, I'm going to need 6 value 2s and 6 value 3s. Grab the cards of the levels that you need, shuffle them all up, and this is the resistance deck for your game. The unused cards can go back in the box. Lay it on the table, draw 2 cards from the resistance deck face up. This is the top row of the resistance fleet. Place 2 corporation drones and the resistance die next to these cards. Any more corporation drones can now go back to the box. Find the crew cards and separate them into stacks based on their tier number. You'll find that in the star here. There is 1s, 2s, and 3s. Separate them into 3 decks and shuffle each deck. Put the decks in a row. I'm putting them over here because they are by the location card that will eventually get you these cards. And draw 2 from each deck to make what you might call some kind of grid. And grab the 6 morale tokens and put them near the crew decks. Now that's it for the main board setup. Let's look at how we set up the players. Each player will need a command center in their color. There's a little strip of color at the top. A reputation marker that goes on the first spot of the reputation track. A morale marker that goes on the first step of the morale track. Grab the turn order markers of each player in the game, these discs, shuffle them all up and put them in a random order on the turn order track. Hey, that's our turn order. The score markers for each player will go on the 0 space of the score track. Grab your 3 ship dice, the translucent ones. They can go above your command center. Your opaque die, your auxiliary ship, can go off to the side, along with 12 drones, these cubes in your player color. 6 more drones can go into your active panel, this blue section. 2 more in the red inactive section. Then everybody needs a faction track, and the 4 different faction markers all lined up together on the 0/10 space. And with that, I think we're all set up. The aim of the game is to compete with your fellow captains and use your ships and drones to gain resources, hire crew members, fight the resistance, and ultimately build the sphere. The player with the most points at the end of all this is the winner. The game lasts 6 rounds, at which point the resistance deck will be used up, or at the end of the round when the final sphere hex is built. Phase 1 is dock. All players will simultaneously roll their 3 dice and place them in the appropriate docking stations. If you happen to have rolled multiple dice of the same number, then just stack them on top of each other. Then all players need to declare what their total pip value is. So I would say 5, 6, 7, 8, and then adjust the turn order accordingly. So the player with the highest total is in position 1, second highest in position 2, and so on. If there is a tie, the tied players reverse their relative turn order. Then you get a morale bonus. Looking down from the docking station to the first row, it will tell you for rolling that particular number, you get this much morale. So for rolling a 1, I get 2 morale. For rolling a 2, I get an extra 1 morale. When you gain morale, you move your marker to the right. When you lose it, you move it to the left. If you lose more morale than you have, you lose 2 points for every morale that you should be losing. Adjust your score on the score track for those. If you gain more morale than you have space for, you gain a point for each one instead. Similarly, to gain reputation, you move it to the right, and if you ever gain more reputation than you have, you gain morale instead. 5's potentially a lot more useful, depending on what you're after, not always, so I don't get any extra morale for that. If you have rolled multiple, the row below is for if there are 2 dice in that particular docking station. So if I rolled 2 ones, I would get 4 morale instead of 2, and if you had all 3 of the same number, you would look at the bottom row. Phase 2 is deploy. Players will take turns in turn order, mainly deploying their ships to locations around the solar sphere. We keep going until all players have placed all of their available dice. Before you deploy one of your ships, though, you've got the option of taking a kickback. They'll cost you morale, but could be very profitable for you. You can choose to take a kickback at the start of every one of your turns. To take a kickback, you move your morale marker down to a spanner icon. The number you have landed on or moved past is the number of kickbacks you can take. You have 3 options and you can mix and match between them. There is an incentive, though, to get some extra reputation, because for every spanner that is underneath or behind your reputation marker, you can actually take 2 kickbacks instead. So in the situation I'm in, I could lose all of my morale here. I have moved past and landed on 2 spanner icons, but one of them was underneath my reputation marker, so I would actually get 1, 2, 3 kickbacks. If I'd gained a single reputation before doing this, I would actually get 1, 2, 3, 4 for moving it all the way back. So as you can see, even getting a little bit of reputation can get you a lot more kickbacks from a bit of morale, and if you can get a lot of both, the possibilities are endless. The kickback options you have are gain a resource. The resources are crystal or gold. You have 6 storage spaces in your command center. Each resource takes up a space. If you've already got 6 things and you gain another, you need to either discard what you're gaining or discard something you've already got in there. You can salvage up to 2 drones. When you salvage a drone, you've got a couple of different options. You can either regenerate it. This means it comes from your inactive area, the red zone, to your active area. The other option you've got is to decommission a drone. To do this, take a drone from your inactive area and put it into your matrix. Now, this is permanent. You will never get this drone back, but it can get you some valuable bonuses. With each salvage action that you are taking, you can only put a drone in each row once. That's why there's this ×1 marker here. It goes to the left of the row that you've chosen, and you can get bonuses like resources, or points, or morale. If over the course of your decommissioning you complete a column of your matrix, you can gain your opaque auxiliary die for the rest of the round. You just roll it and pop it in your command center. You don't gain morale for it, but it's an extra turn. You can place it. So with the salvaging option, you can salvage up to 2 drones. So that means either regenerating 2 drones, decommissioning 2 drones, or mix and match one of each. Your final option is fabricate a single drone. Fabricating means you take one from your supply and put it into your active area. This is how you will get more drones to be able to use throughout the game. If you haven't got any left in your reserve, then you can choose to take one that's out on a location card as a satellite and put it into your active panel instead. So to recap, kickbacks are completely optional. They can be taken at the start of every one of your turns. To take one, you can move your morale marker back to the next spanner icon or get multiple spanner icons. Each icon you moved past or landed on gives you a kickback, but if it's underneath or behind your reputation marker, it gives you an additional one. And the options are gain a resource, salvage up to 2 drones, or fabricate a drone. So that's just an optional step. Whether you have chosen to take a kickback or not, the next step is deploying a ship die to visit a location. The location cards have requirements as to which dice are allowed to go there. So you can see 1 or a 2, a 3 or a 4, a 5 or a 6, an odd number, you can see an O there, an even number, or any value. Now you're not completely at the mercy of the dice. You can exhaust one or more of your drones to change the value of your ship die before you deploy it. For each drone you spend, so it goes from your active to your inactive area, you can change the value of a die up or down by 1 pip. Now the values don't wrap, so I can't just exhaust one drone to turn a 6 into a 1. I'd have to use 5 to do that. If there's already a die at a location you want to visit, whether it's yours or another player's, I have to exhaust a die as an extra cost to visit that location. If you haven't got any active drones, then you can't visit a location that's already got a ship die there. But maybe that would be the time to take a kickback and get some more drones onto your command center. If you're completely stuck, you do have one more option. You can discard a die and not place it anywhere to gain 1 morale. It's more of a last resort thing, but you do have that option. When you visit one of the locations, you have 2 options. You can deploy a satellite drone on the card. To do this, you take a drone from your active area and place it onto the location card. This is your entire action. You end your turn and don't gain anything just yet. Each player can have 1 satellite drone on each location, but any number of players can have satellite drones in the same place. The other option you have is to take the action of the location card. The action is shown just underneath the dice values required. So coming here normally, you would get yourself 1 gold. But if you visit a location and you've already in a previous turn placed a satellite drone, you get what's in this box as well. So instead of just getting 1 gold per action, you would get 3 in total. So a massive boost, but you've had to give up one of your precious actions earlier in the game where essentially you got nothing, but you can more than make up for it later on. Locations in the Asteroid belt will all reward you with their respective resources, or gold and crystals respectively, and all have the same boost. If you have a satellite drone, you get 2 extra of that resource when you visit. At the drone fabricator, you can fabricate 2 drones, 3 if you have a satellite drone here. Remember, fabricating drones means taking them from your supply and putting them into your active area. Any die can go to the salvage ship. The action here is to salvage the number of drones equal to the value of your die. And salvaging is where we either regenerate drones from inactive to active. So I could do 4 of those in one go. And you can also choose to decommission some of your drones as well. Remember, 1 per row with each decommission action that you're taking. You can mix it up though, so I could put 1 in each row and regenerate 1, or any combination I'd like to. If you have a satellite boost here, you can salvage up to 6 drones regardless of the value of the die that you placed. So for example, if you have a satellite here, you could be placing a 1, still get to salvage 6 drones, and rolling ones has a potentially massive morale boost as well, which could then be used for kickbacks. I'm getting ahead of myself though. At the solar sphere, any die can come here, and the action is to build any viable sphere hex, which has a dice value in the middle of it that's equal to or lower than the die that you have placed. If you've placed a satellite boost here, the value of your die doesn't matter. You can build in any numbered hex, no matter which die you placed. A space is viable if nobody has built on it yet, so there are no drones on there at all, and it must be adjacent to either the core hex or a hex that's already been built on by yourself or any other player. So you can see the benefit in a game with fewer players. We don't have as many hexes out, but there are potentially a lot more numbers available because you can build adjacent to these corporation drones that have been placed during setup. So if I had the correct resources, the cost is at the top of the hexes, 2 ore and 2 gold for this hex. I could grab a drone from my active area, pop it on the tile, pay the resource cost back to the supply, and I have now built that sphere hex. You must be able to pay the cost and deploy the drone to be able to take the action. And remember that building the final sphere hex can cause the game to end early. The game will end at the end of the round in which that happens. Now, of course, we want some juicy rewards from building these expensive hexes. The benefits might be reputation, which is this sun symbol here. Remember, when we gain reputation, we move to the right. And you will also gain some reputation, some rapport with the various factions in space. So here I would gain a reputation with the orange faction. So I would find their token and move up one space on my faction tracker. Now, the costs and rewards and positions of the sphere hexes can be a big influence in where you would like to build, but you should also be thinking about the sphere goal up here. Remember, we get a random one in each game, and it tells us about some bonus scoring that we can get at the end of the game. With this particular goal, we would get 6 points for each hex that's in your largest group of connected hexes, and all your other hexes would be worth 3 points each instead. You can also gain morale bonuses from building out onto the sphere. After you build, you check each adjacent hex, and the builder of those adjacent hexes will gain a morale. The first build obviously won't gain anything, but building around desirable areas can really gain you some morale later. If you were to build again adjacent to yourself, you would gain a morale and keep kind of building off of that. Building there would gain you 2 more morale in the future, and maybe put off the other players from building where you'd like to. At the crew station, we can place any odd numbered die, and your action is to hire a crew member. If you have a satellite boost, you can gain one of any resource before you hire the crew member. To hire a crew member, you look at the top left corner of each card, and this shows you the resource cost to be able to hire that crew. There may be specific resource requirements like 2 gold, or wildcard requirements like 2 gold and 1 of anything. At the end of each round, unhired crew will gain morale tokens on it. If you were to hire a crew member with morale on it, you would gain that much morale and discard the token. So if I was to hire this crew member, I would need to pay 2 gold back to the supply. Score points as shown in the star on the bottom left corner. In this case, 1 point. Take the card. They will now join your command center. As you can see, you've got space for 3 crew members. If you've already got 3 crew members and you hire another one of your existing crew has to retire. You can only retire crew when you're hiring more. You can't choose to do it. When you retire a crew, you gain the bonus in the bottom right of the card in this red box here. So in this case, an ore. And then you put them face down in a personal retirement pile by your command center. Faction icons on your current and retired crew will count for scoring at the end of the game. Now, there are a lot of crew members and various actions that they can take. They're all covered in the almanac in your rulebook, but when it comes to your turn to deploy and use a die, you can use your crew members. You rotate them to show that they have been used this round. Each crew member can be used once per round, and they can be used for actions such as turn an ore that you have, hey, that'd be useful, into 2 gold, gain a gold whenever you visit the crew station, or fabricate a drone. After you've finished hiring your crew card, you do not refill the display. It will refill at the end of the round. The final location is the Resistance Fleet. Any even valued die can go here, and your action is to attack any number of Resistance ships. These are the Resistance ships down here. If you already have a satellite boost here, before you attack, you can salvage up to 2 drones. For each ship you want to attack, you need to pay a crystal from your storage back to the supply, and then deploy any number of drones from your active area. Your drones go in columns at the bottom of the card, so I would pile those up there because it might very well be important who placed here first. If you choose to deploy more drones on the same ship later, just put them in the same column. You've got to be able to pay a crystal and place at least 1 drone to be able to take this action. For the rest of the deploy phase, our drones just stay there. They will be resolved in the very next phase, which just so happens to be what I'm moving on to. Phase 3 is battle. This is where we take on the resistance ships one by one. At the start of the game, there are only 2 ships out here, but in future rounds, undefeated ships will stay out here. Looking at each ship one by one, whoever deployed the most drones is the commander. So I've deployed the most here, I would be the commander. If we had a tie for who had placed the most, then whoever placed earliest would be the commander. So I would still be the commander. You could, of course, choose to place loads of extra drones to try and make yourself the commander, if you would like to. The commander rolls the resistance die and adds the total rolled to the resistance number on the card. This is the resistance value of the ship. If the total number of drones on the card is equal to or greater than the resistance value of the ship, the attack succeeds. So in this case, we're equal, it succeeds, but if I'd rolled even a 1, it would have failed, because the resistance value would be 4 to our 3 drones. If this attack is successful, the commander gains the top bonus, so 5 points, and a morale. The player with the second most drones gets the second bonus and a morale, and all of the players here get the third bonus and a morale. Remember, if anyone's tied, whoever placed earlier breaks the tie. The other benefit of being commander is that you get the card. If there is a corporation symbol in the corner, you would gain yourself some reputation. The faction symbols will be scored at the end of the game. All drones that were placed go back to the player's command centers in their inactive area. Let's say we had a failed attack here. They happen to roll quite high. We're a bit more resistant than we were expecting. The attack will continue in a future round. The card moves down to the bottom row of the fleet, and we put a corporation drone on the card. This is like a neutral player that's just added 1 drone to the ship. So it's on our side, but the corporation is competing for supremacy just like we are. To the point where the corporation could be the commander. In this case, a player still needs to roll the die, but nobody would get the highest bonus or the ship card. The corporation can also diminish rewards you would get, so I would be in 3rd place and only get 1 point rather than 2, because the corporation got in before me. So the corporation drones will make it easier to defeat this ship later on, hopefully. And the downside is your drones are still tied up on this card for a future round. Now in a future round, if we still fail to attack the ship and it's already on the bottom row, the attack ends in defeat for the players. Nobody gets any points, and all players, including players that didn't even contribute to the attack, will lose a morale. The commander still gets to take the card though, for its faction symbols at the end of the game or potential reputation gain. In the last round of the game, so that's either round 6 or at the end of the round when all of the sphere hexes have been built, you treat all of the attacks as if they were on the bottom row. In phase 4 we recover, so players take back their ship dice, place them back in your command center. If you gained your auxiliary die for the round, it goes back into your reserve. You only get it for the 1 round. You can get your opaque dice by filling a column in your matrix by decommissioning drones, or as a retirement bonus on some tier 3 crew members. It can be gained in the middle of a round, and it does not give you any kind of morale bonus, but it's still an extra action that you can take, an extra ship that can be deployed. We draw 2 new cards as the new top row of the resistance ships. Any used crew cards rotate back into their upright position, ready to be used in the next round. Over in the crew display, we place morale tokens on crew that weren't recruited this round. If they don't have a morale token on them, then we place one on there with the value 1 showing. In a future round, if they still haven't been recruited, those morale tokens would get flipped to 2s. And at the end of the next round, if they still haven't been recruited, the crew members are discarded, put back on the bottom of their decks, and the morale tokens are discarded as well. Then we draw new cards to fully replenish the display from the relevant decks. So there's 2 cards of each tier available in the display for the next round. The game will end at the end of either the 6th round, you'll know this because there are no more cards in the resistance ship deck, or at the end of the round when the sphere hexes have completely been built. Remember, you always complete the battle phase of that final round and treat all of the ships as if they were in the bottom row, because it's make or break time by then. You gain extra points based on the sphere goal. So remember, this tells us how much our hexes that we've built are worth. In the case of sphere goal 2, it is 6 points for every hex in your largest group that is touching, and 3 points for any others that you built. We score for factions. Look at the icons that you've got across your current crew, retired crew members, sphere hexes, and resistance ship cards that you have gained. Add them all onto your faction track. Every complete set of 3 icons that you've earned is worth 5 points. So in this example, 6 sets would be 30 points. Now these silver ones are wildcards. Any of these that you have earned during the game can now be spent to bump up another faction to give you more sets for more points. The final position of your reputation and morale tracks will either gain or lose you points. So right here I would be losing 1 for my reputation and 3 for my morale. Hopefully I'm gaining the points somewhere else. And you also gain half a point for any active drone and resource left on your player board. So here it will be 1, 2, 3, 4 things, half a point for each, 2 extra points. Inactive drones, decommissioned drones, and drones that are still in your supply are worth nothing. Then we compare scores, and the player with the most points is the winner. If there's a tie, the player who has the most reputation is the winner. If there's still a tie, the player with the most morale is the winner. And if there's still a tie, my favourite, all tied players share the victory. And that's how to play Solar Sphere. I hope this has helped. If you have any extra questions or comments, put them below and I'll do my best to answer them for you. If you are just here for the multiplayer rules, thank you for being here, and I'll see you for the next game. But if you are interested in solo, let's move on to our competition with Dranda. In the solo mode, you will play against the Delta Rift Area Nexus Defense Automa, or Dranda, an AI hired by Enigma GMC. You win the game if you get more points than Dranda. Before we start, we choose a difficulty level that determines how many points Dranda will gain when it takes various actions. You set up the game like a normal 2-player game, but you must always use the red player set. Dranda will always use the black player set. Now you'll want a player area for Dranda, which I admit I'm squashing in a little bit in this example here, but you want the 12 Dranda cards all shuffled up nicely into a deck. Flip up the top card as the start of the discard pile. You'll want space for 3 cards to be laid to the right of the discard pile, which maybe I've just got enough of. We'll say there. There's also a handy player aid that reminds you of the changes to the phases of the game and the points that Dranda will score based on the difficulty level that you're playing. You also want the 20 black drones, and Dranda will want some dice, basically 2 dice each of the colours that you're not playing. 1 translucent, 1 opaque of black, blue and yellow. The ship dice go near the discard pile. The opaque dice go off to the side for now, and you'll also need a faction tracker and some faction markers for Dranda. Now the changes to the game itself. Phase 1, dock. So you roll and resolve your own dice in the same way, gaining your morale, stacking them up, all that business. But then for Dranda, you roll the dice and put them in the order shown at the bottom of the card at the top of the discard pile. And this shows us the order in which Dranda is going to play its ship dice. We count up the pips as normal to determine the turn order. In the deploy phase, you take your turns as normal, but when it comes to Dranda's turn, you reveal the top card of their deck, place it above the leftmost die. We check the colour of the die and the corresponding location on the card and place the die there. All the locations have corresponding icons in the corner. So here he would be placing in the resistance fleet section, and it will carry out instructions based on the location it's going at, but you don't discard the card, leave it where it is for now. Dranda does not need to follow the restrictions on the placement that you do, like the odd or even or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the resource locations. If they try and place on a location with a ship already there, they will discard a drone permanently from their supply. If they have no drones left, they lose a point instead. If they would ever gain morale, they gain points instead, based on your difficulty level. Same for reputation. If they ever need more drones to complete an action than they have left in their supply, they will reclaim enough drones to be able to take their action from the ones that have been removed from the game, but lose a point for each one they are reclaiming. Sometimes their actions will want to know which faction it has the fewest icons of. Dranda always prefers silver faction icons, so we'll always treat those as the type it has the fewest of. So now let's have a look at the various locations and see how Dranda treats them. If they are visiting the Asteroid belt, any of the resource locations, you place their die on the location with the corresponding number. Dranda never gains resources. They are purely getting in your way. Over at the Salvage Ship, they will gain dice. Draw a card from the top of the Dranda deck and take the opaque die that's the leftmost on the bottom of the card. So in this case, it would be the opaque yellow die. Check the icon that colour corresponds to, roll the die, and then take an action at that location as well. Put the new card in the play area and discard the card that triggered this action. If you happen to draw a card that would give you the same opaque die that's already been used again, keep drawing until you get given a colour that Dranda can take. At the Solar Sphere, Dranda will build 1 unbuilt hex. They have a priority list that will keep narrowing things down until they get to 1 available hex. First of all, they will look at hexes showing Dranda's die. So they'd be looking at these 2 1s. Then, a hex that can score them 6 points according to the sphere goal in play. So again, with sphere goal 2, later on in the game, they'd want to be building next to each other if possible. So that wouldn't narrow us down any. A hex with a faction icon, of which Dranda currently has the fewest or joint fewest. Got none of anything at the moment, so still tied. The hex adjacent to as many of its hexes as possible. At the start of the game, it wouldn't have any. The leftmost hex of the remaining possibilities. There we go. And then finally, if it still had some, then the topmost hex of the remaining possibilities. But in our case, the leftmost already decides it. It would pop a drone there and gain the benefits shown. It will move up on its faction tracker, and remember, it might gain points for gaining reputation. If it still couldn't find a hex after all of those possibilities, you would look one lower in value. So if we were already looking at 5s and couldn't find any, Dranda would switch to 4s. In this case, if it had already looked at all the 1s and couldn't build anything, it loses a drone from the game to place on a hex of any value that meets those criteria the best. So you know that can try and score it 6 points on the sphere goal card, or try and get it the most faction points after that. At the resistance fleet, Dranda will deploy 3 or 4 drones depending on the difficulty level that you chose. Let's say we're playing on easy and Dranda is going to place 3 drones, and this is just an example from a later round when we've got a bottom row. Now in the solo game, we always place the ships so that the higher target, the higher resistance value, is on the left. Dranda is going to put their drones out using 4 steps, basically 4 criteria, in order until they've got no more drones left. At each step, we're going to be asked to consider the power, which is the total number of drones on a ship, and the target, which is the resistance value of the ship. The first step is they look at the bottom row, going from left to right, and will place drones on each ship if they're needed to make the power, the number of drones on it, equal to the target. So right here, there are 2 drones on the ship. They would place one so that now it's equal to the target. Over here though, there's already 3 drones and the resistance value is only 2, so they wouldn't place one. Their next criteria, still looking at the bottom row from left to right, they would deploy drones 1 at a time until the power, the number of drones, is greater than the target number plus 2. So with only 2 things left, they would deploy another drone here and another drone here. They've got none left, and the power still isn't greater on either ship than the target plus 2. So if they were to place in future, they would still be putting more drones down here to try and make sure the attack succeeds and to try and make sure they are the commander. If they've still got drones left, or like in the first round when there isn't a bottom row, they'll start considering the same thing on the top row. First, step A, so deploying their drones so that the power equals the target. In this case, they would just pop all 3 drones on the first ship. And then if they still had more left, or there were already drones on those ships, they would do the same thing, put drones down 1 at a time until the total power was greater than the target plus 2. Now, if they've gone through all of those phases and they've still got drones left to place, starting from the bottom row left to right, then moving to the top row left to right, they will place drones 1 at a time on each ship. If they still had drones after they had done all of this, they would just keep repeating, just keep putting drones down. Over at the crew station, they ignore the die requirement, remember? They hire a crew member based on the die value that they're placing. If it's a 1 or a 2, they hire a tier 1 crew member. If it's a 3 or a 4, they hire a tier 2 crew member. And if it's a 5 or a 6, they hire a tier 3 crew member. If they have a choice between 2 crew members, they will choose the crew member that will give them the faction symbol they have the fewest of. If there's still a tie, like in this case, if they used an odd die, they'd take the top card. If they used an even die, they would take the bottom card. If there are no crew members left of the tier that they want, they will hire from the next highest tier. If they would be trying to hire from a tier with no cards left, and the next highest hasn't got any cards left either, they would hire from the lower value tier instead. Dranda collects all their hired crew in a pile, but they never need to retire crew. They do not use the abilities. They are purely collecting points and faction symbols. In the battle phase, we resolve the battles in exactly the same way as usual. Dranda scores points, gains morale, and takes cards in the same way a normal player would. Remember, based on your difficulty level, gaining morale might gain Dranda points. If Dranda participated in a successful attack, they will discard a number of drones depending on your difficulty level. So if we're still saying easy, they would discard 2 of the drones they participated with, and the remaining drones would go back to their supply. If it happened to be an unsuccessful attack, all of their drones would go back to their supply, and they do not lose morale for unsuccessful attacks. In the recover phase, we have some extra steps for Dranda. Flip the top card of the deck into the discard pile, collect the 3 cards that were used for their actions, and shuffle them back into the deck. You never shuffle cards from the discard pile back into the deck. Once they're discarded, they are there for the rest of the game and they're never reused. When we're replenishing ship cards, remember we want the highest resistance value on the left. If there is a tie, we look at which faction symbol Dranda needs the most and put that one on the left. Remember, if wild is ever an option, that's what they want. Any opaque dice that Dranda might have used this round are removed from the game. They won't be used again. At the end of the game, Dranda scores in the exact same categories that you would, but depending on the difficulty that they're playing, they also earn points based on how many drones they have got left. On easy difficulty, that would be a point per drone. If you score more points than Dranda, you win. Good luck with that. I hope I've given you a good start for the solo mode as well. I'll be back with loads more board gaming. And in the meantime, there's hundreds of videos on this channel if you would like to see more. Thank you very much for watching this one though, and I will see you for the next game. Enjoy Solar Sphere!